Our next story is like the plot twist of a geopolitical thriller. And for that, we are turning to Afghanistan. The US wants to make a comeback to Afghanistan. American military planes have been spotted at the Bagram Airbase. Yes, Bagram, the very same base that Washington abandoned in 2021. Military equipment worth billions was left behind, not to mention allied Afghan troops. They were all left behind. It was a chaotic exit and a PR disaster for the world's largest military. 4 years have gone by. There is a new sheriff in town. I'm talking about Donald Trump, of course. And now the Americans are making a U-turn. They want Bagram back. Well, here's what we know. On the 7th of April, reports emerged about increased air activity near Kabul. Open source flight trackers, in fact, gave a better picture. An American C-17 military plane landed in Bagram. It is a massive cargo aircraft. It is hard to miss. It reportedly touched down in Bagram, but the plane was not empty. It offloaded military hardware and senior intelligence officials, including the CIA deputy chief, Michael Ellis. Clearly, the Americans are up to something. And it has the Taliban stamp of approval. They wouldn't want the Americans back unless there's a trade-off. More on that later. Some reports also say that the Taliban has handed Bagram back to the US. The Taliban calls it propaganda. They say they have full control of the airbase. So what's really happening? Let's try and break it down for you. The Bagram Airbase is located just north of Kabul. It was a strategic airbase for US and NATO forces. It was used to launch airstrikes against Taliban and other terrorist groups. But everything changed in July 2021. Then US President Joe Biden announced an exit. Americans left Afghanistan in a hurry. The Bagram Airbase was ditched in the cover of the night, and Taliban seized it within days after capturing Kabul. 4 years later, the Americans are desperate to return. Trump even wants boots on the ground at Bagram. Listen to this.
But we were going to keep Bagram, not because of Afghanistan, but because of China, because it's exactly 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear missiles. So we're going to keep Bagram. We were going to keep a small force on Bagram. We're going to have Bagram Air Base, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it up. And you know who's occupying it right now? China.
4 years after a horrible and botched exit, and they want to redeploy troops to Afghanistan. To know shame is to be human. You may have heard this quote before. What does it say about Uncle Sam? Trump says the Bagram Air Base is strategic. It is close to China's nuclear missile sites. Trump also says that Bagram is currently being occupied by China. Now, we're not sure about the Chinese presence, but the airbase is vital. We know that. Let me show you on a map. Bagram has 2 large runways. It has almost 100 parking bays for military aircraft, and the airstrip's location is strategic. It would give Americans closer access to China, particularly Xinjiang. That's where China has several nuclear missile silos. A flight from Bagram to Xinjiang is less than an hour. And that's not all. The airbase is significant for Trump's Iran strategy as well. Bagram means US military planes will be in Iran's backyard. This is why they're eager to return. It sends a message to Beijing and Tehran. Trump is trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, a stone called Bagram. But where does that leave the Taliban? They fought a bloody war to keep the Americans out. Eventually, they had it their way. Why would they want the US to return? One could think of 2 reasons. First, security. Taliban has many rivals like ISIS-K, Islamic State Khorasan province. The Taliban sees ISIS-K as a challenge to their authority. And then there's Pakistan. Taliban and the Pakistan army have had multiple skirmishes recently, so the US military's return to Bagram means drone strikes and surveillance against ISIS-K. It would also force Pakistan to keep its guns silent. And the Taliban would be happy with both scenarios. That's the first reason, security. The second is money, or could be. The Taliban is in dire need of cash. Allowing Americans to return to Bagram means one thing: dollars. And the thaw has already begun. Last month, Taliban released a US citizen, the 4th this year. In return, the US has dropped bounties on key Taliban leaders, including a $10 million bounty on Sirajuddin Haqqani, the man who masterminded attacks on US forces. He was on the FBI's most wanted list, and now he's free. That's a seismic shift in US policy. And there's more. The US wants to resume consular services in Afghanistan. Diplomatic talks have become frequent. And the Taliban is welcoming this.
Discussions were held on Afghanistan-US bilateral relations, the release of prisoners, and the provision of consular services to Afghans in the United States. The Minister of Foreign Affairs further emphasized the importance of resolving issues between Afghanistan and the United States through dialogue.
So what's next? Has the US taken over Bagram? Well, for now it is just reports, but don't be surprised if Trump makes a deal. Will it be a strategic masterstroke or another disaster in the making? We'll have to wait and see, but one thing is quite clear. Bagram's story is not over.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
No, I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India, what we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.